Hello, Abby. Thanks for joining my podcast. So, before we start, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited for this conversation. I've been checking out your podcast and all the conversations are so rich. This topic is a juicy one for sure. So I'm really excited to dive in. I'm happy to share. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a transformational life coach, specifically working with mothers. And I'm a mom of myself. I have four children, five and under, which is unbelievable. And I always have to share that because it's a feat in itself. And I'm passionate about speaking about this topic and then also just my journey. And we'll dive into that as we get the conversation going as to how that pertains to me and the lessons I've learned along the way. And yeah, I'm excited.
That's good. Oh, I know.
Mhm.
We get together to get the kids to play, and it's like a kindergarten.
Yes, it is.
And it's a huge challenge. You're raising your four children, you are starting your coaching business, your coaching school, and you are part of many community movements where
Mhm,
you are supporting women that are going through addiction, that are going through trauma, that are
mhm.
going through motherhood and postpartum. So I do appreciate all you do, and I question every day, like, how do you do it?
Gosh, girl, same with you. Same with you. I definitely look up to you as well. It's not easy, as you and I know. Juggling motherhood in itself is a full-time job. And then on top of that, everything else, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But we do it when you're passionate about something and it lights you up. It truly doesn't feel like work, even though it is hard work.
Yeah.
But it's something that it brings me joy. It brings me joy to be able to, yeah, give of myself in this way in the world, and have a purpose and a mission, and I'm really passionate about it. So, I gladly will work through the kinks, like getting on this call today.
Yeah, and as you said, these are the passionate stuff that you do, but I'm sure it wasn't always like that. You
Hmm.
became who you are, and this became a passion because of the things you went through, because of
Yeah,
the experiences, because of the mistakes you made. So let's talk about that. Let's dive into what are the things that you went through that at the time you could have said, "Oh my gosh, this is just so hard." We
yeah,
call it mistakes, big fuck ups,
yeah.
royal messes that we go through that make us who you are. Do you remember any that you want to share today?
Absolutely. The one that comes to mind for me that really, at the time, I didn't realize was really going to be um, like what I like to call crucible moment in my life, where it was a turning point. It was a major turning point for me where I had a major decision to make. And I'm so glad of the decision that I did make. And so this has been on my heart because next month, October, marks 10 years for me since I entered into recovery. And so I've just been very reflective because it's been a decade. And it really, it blows me away because I bring myself back to what life was like back then, when I made that decision to seek recovery, to enter into my healing journey. When I experienced what I like to call my last rock bottom, my final rock bottom, because I truly believe that we always have a choice, to say, you can have one rock bottom in your life or you can have multiple. And in my story, I had multiple. And this was the final one, where I finally threw away the shovel and I decided that I was going to dig myself out. And so, yeah, so it was 10 years ago. I made the decision. It was in July 2024. I had a significant experience that happened in June that basically wound me in trouble with the law, and for the second time. And so it wasn't, my first time, but this time it was different because the place that I was at in my life at that time, I was in a place where, yeah, I was on the cusp of my 30th birthday. I had been through so much, up until that point, growing up in an abusive home, with a lot of trauma, with alcohol addiction, with mental health issues, and then me myself turning to drugs and alcohol to kind of cope and to, get through life, which led me down a path of 15 years of deep addiction. And so, but through that, I was very, very functional. I went to university, I got my nursing degree, I had an amazing job right away.
Wow.
I found the love of my life. We got married. had a beautiful wedding. We were traveling all the time. We bought a home. We bought cars. On the outside, it was so picture perfect. Everybody, no one would have imagined, what was the reality. And the reality was that I was struggling deeply with depression and anxiety and even suicide ideations. I had struggled with that since I was 9 years old, and I was just using alcohol to really cope. And it was starting to get to the point where even alcohol wasn't even doing what it was supposed to do, where it was just like creating a much more significant of a problem in my life than it was a relief and a coping mechanism. And so I got in trouble with the law. Like I said, I woke up in jail. I had charges that were pressed, all this stuff. It was a disaster at that time. And, I just said, enough is enough. Like, this is when I really need to look at this relationship that I have with alcohol. And I just don't want to wake up like this anymore. I don't want to wake up feeling like this anymore. And also knowing that the lifestyle that I was leaving behind closed doors, and even really not even, a lot of it wasn't even behind closed doors, because as you know, alcohol culturally is just very, it's
Accepted.
normal.
Yeah.
It's very accepted, to be in your 20s and drinking too hard and partying hard, all of that kind of stuff. It's very, very normalized in our culture. And so my friends drank just as heavy as I did. But the difference was that, they were doing it for, fun and to enjoy themselves, to let loose. I was doing it solely for the purpose to numb and not deal and not cope and um not face the things that I had been running away from since childhood. And so I made that decision, and had no idea what to even do. Like, I just knew it was a decision. I was like, okay, I need help. How am I even going to do this? And so the first thing that came to mind was I just sought recovery programs and all that kind of stuff. And so I made it to day 56, which was huge for me, because when I entered into recovery, even the thought of going 7 days, without drinking, I couldn't even imagine it, to be honest. I was like, how do people do that? But what I was taught through 12-step programs that I became a part of was, one day at a time. You take things one day at a time, and sometimes it's an hour at a time, sometimes it's a minute at a time. And so that definitely was the case for me, where it was really a one day at a time, and I just kind of traded out the association that I had prior to, with now people who were also in recovery, who could support me, who understood what I was going through, that kind of a thing. And so day 56 hit for me, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, almost like 60 days, almost 2 months. Like, I just was so blown away by this. And I felt pretty confident. I was like, I'm feeling pretty good. And like, there's this term that they say in recovery, which is the pink cloud effect, right? Where everything is like airy and fairy and like so good. And, and you seem like, I was like, I got this, right? And so went for dinner with some coworkers, and they ordered a bottle of wine at dinner. And I just, in my head, I was like, like right away, just kind of planning in my head. And they didn't know, the coworkers that I was with had no
Mm,
idea that I was in recovery. They had no idea that I didn't drink alcohol. Because just a few months back, I had gone out with one of them, and we had drank way too much, like it was crazy.
mm.
And so, they ordered the bottle of wine. And when it got to the table, I thought to myself in my head, I was like, you know what? It's almost 60 days. I think I can handle just one drink during dinner, just have one glass of wine. And yeah, so I had that glass of wine, and next thing you know, two bottles later, and then the nightclub later, and shots and all that kind of stuff, totally went off the deep end and just completely relapsed. And that was a really upsetting, really disappointing situation for me, right? Like, my husband came and picked me up. He was so disappointed as soon as he saw me, saw
Mm.
that I was like, not, I was barely even walking, all of that kind of stuff. And the next morning I woke up and I felt like the biggest failure. I just like remember just bawling my eyes out. I fell asleep on the couch. Like, I wouldn't even sleep on the bed. I fell asleep on the couch, and I woke up and I was just bawling my eyes out. And I was like, how could I have, let that happen? And I was so, so disappointed. And it was one of those moments, like I said, where I could have really taken that failure and really, yeah, just given up, right? Like, and those were the thoughts that were going through my head, where I
Mm.
was like, yeah, like, I'm hopeless. This is never
Why
going to work
bother?
for me. Why bother?
Yeah.
Exactly. All of those thoughts. And I just was, I just remember thinking to myself, like, there's no hope, like I'm not never gonna get through this. I'm never gonna recover all of those things. And, through divine intervention, as I like to call it, I had somebody that was in one of the programs that I was a part of that actually reached out to me that day and just sent me a text and was like, hey, just checking in. How are you doing? And for whatever reason, I just let loose and I just told her everything. I was like, oh, I'm such a failure. Like I
Mm-hmm.
went out last night and I drank and I relapsed and I almost made it to 60 days. And, it's useless for me. It's not going to work for me. I'm just going to give up. And I remember like these were the key words that still to this day, changed everything. It changed the trajectory of my life, where she just said, I understand how you're feeling and I get it. It's disappointing. It's upsetting. Like she really validated my experience and really normalized it. And then she said, I don't see it as a failure. She's like, I'll only see it as a failure if you keep doing it. She's like, but this could be one of the best lessons for you in your life, if you learn from it. And then therefore it's not a failure. It's actually a lesson. And I just remember it was just like, I had never heard that kind of perspective before, and I was like, okay. So she said, just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start over and then learn from this, right? And so I did, it gave me time to really deeply reflect on the experience. And what it really confirmed for me was number one, I could no longer safely take even one drink of alcohol moving forward. I knew that then and there. Number two, I had to learn to better prepare myself for situations like this. When you're in early recovery, you have to be so mindful of who you're around, what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be exposed to, because if not, you're going to be presented in situations where you're not prepared and you're going to give in, like your mind is going to play tricks on you. It's going to try to convince you that it's going to be okay, all of that kind of stuff, which is exactly what happened to me. And so it was one of the most important moments of my life. And so that's what I did. I picked myself up, dusted myself off, went back into the 12-step programs. And I remember that first day that I went back and I was supposed to receive like a 30, 60-day chip. And I was just like, once again, when it was like time for me to like come up or whatever, or they were like, like asking like, oh, who's going to be taking their 60 days? And it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
me. And I just started crying again. And I was just like,
Wow.
but I was just surrounded with so much love and support and everybody was just so, so kind, like so kind, so encouraging, so loving, so compassionate, and then I felt so much better. I felt so, just validated, right? And so that was like I said, that was the first thing that really popped up for me in terms of the biggest fuck ups that I had at that time that really led to everything that I've been able to create now in my life. And so that was 10 years ago, in October that experience happened. And I've never looked back. And that conversation that I had with a friend of mine who is still in my life, who I'm actually celebrating her sobriety birthday coming up here tomorrow, very, very near and dear person in my life, that I very much look up to. I think back to how yeah, like I took that mindset and then moving forward in everything that I did,
Yeah.
anytime that I would be faced with a mistake or a failure, I'd always just have the time to reflect and think, okay, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
And there was always so much to learn. Like I stopped beating myself up and I remember that I am human, that I'm living this human experience and that I can learn and grow from these mistakes and failures. And to be honest, they have been the greatest teachers in my life, and even with my kids, right? Because now I have, the four kids and my oldest is 5 and she's trying new things and you can see when she's frustrated, when she can't, what doesn't get things right away, or she can't. Even my son the other day, he was like trying to do the monkey bars, and he was getting so like, just he was getting so frustrated with himself, and he's like, I can't do it. And I'm just like, okay, but do you want to? Do you want to do it? He's like, yeah, I do. And I was like, okay, so like, and I explained to him, like when sometimes we might have to fail at things multiple times before we get better at it, right? And like my daughter's wanting to get rid of her training wheels and she's scared of falling. I'm like, you're gonna fall. It's a given. You're gonna fall
Yeah.
multiple times, but then you're gonna learn, and then you're never gonna have to learn it again. Because like when you ride a bike, you know that life skill for the rest of your life, right? And so, it's that those mindsets that I've now been able to transfer to my kids, right? And because I live it every day, and as you know, as entrepreneurs, we come across multiple failures
Yeah.
in our journey, right? We
Yeah.
try things, they don't work. We try again. We smash our faces. We go through burnout, all of those things, right? And it's just like when I apply that, that perspective in all of those situations, it just opens up a whole wealth of wisdom, right? That
Yeah.
comes from really taking those situations and learning and growing from them. So yeah, that's the biggest one that was on my heart that I definitely wanted to share on. And when you asked me, well, when you told me the topic of
Yeah.
today.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. So I have a few
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
The first time you decided, okay, I'm going to get sober, I'm stopping this, that decision that you took the first time and the second time after that 56 days, which
Hmm.
one was harder?
Hmm. I think the second one, to be honest, because the first one was the first time that I kind of made the decision, I almost felt like I had no choice.
Yeah.
Like I really, I like it was, I had no choice. Like what was my other choice, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
like go back to that life and then potentially like either kill myself or kill other people, while
Yeah.
like, all that kind of stuff, right? Like by being irresponsible with my drinking, all that kind of stuff. So it was more of a, like I was very led and guided and I was ready. I was ready to make that decision. And I think the second time be the sheer failure, the sheer disappointment in myself, it was, and the shame that comes with when we mess up,
Yeah.
like we don't want to face other people.
Yeah.
That was my biggest thing where I didn't want to like go back to my 12-step group because I was like, oh my gosh, they're all going to think I'm a
Exactly.
failure. They're
Hmm.
going to they're not going to care about me. They're just going to kick me out. All those things,
Yeah.
right? So I think, the second one was probably harder because it was like when you take the chance and then you fall on your face and you get up and you're all bruised and
Yeah.
broken and all that kind of stuff, and then you have to face those like injuries in the
Yeah.
mirror for the
Yeah.
next however long until it heals, as a
Yeah.
reminder of your failure. you know
Yeah.
that's what it was like for me to like make that decision the second time around. Because then it was serious, where it was like, okay, obviously what I'm doing up until this point was helping, but it wasn't working fully, and I wasn't fully committed.
Yeah.
Right, like there was still some question in my mind where, oh, like in that dinner situation, there was still the doubt in my mind where I was like, oh, I can handle one glass, during dinner.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
almost 2 months, right? So yeah, yeah, great question.
Yeah. I think the second time we fear that shame and we fear the failure because we already witnessed it, right? We
Hmm.
received it. But
Hmm.
like you said earlier, it gave you a strategy. It made
Hmm.
you come up with what was going to be your number one, what was going to be your
Hmm.
number two, and how to get over that with that strategic plan that you had.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. It was necessary.
yeah, and you can only come up with that plan on the second failure, on the second
Ex
try.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
I'm just listening to you and I'm realizing, yes, you actually need to fail once to
Hmm.
be able to be successful later on. Because if you
Hmm.
hadn't failed on your 56th day,
Hmm.
I don't think you would have come with that plan. Like those
No.
strategic steps and
Hmm.
plans that you went through, that
Hmm.
you know exactly what to do for the next time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And maybe because of those plannings, you were able to make for this 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I 100% agree. And now when because there's been a lot of mindset work that I've had to, kind of, yeah, just work on in myself in the last 10 years, since entering recovery and basically becoming a completely new person, letting go of who I was before that time and the people that were around me was a complete transformation, from the
Yeah,
inside out. And I don't think I would be where I'm at today if I wouldn't have failed as many times as I have. Even in my motherhood journey, I'm just coming out of this place right now where I finally feel like I've broken through the burnout cycle, and as as moms, as entrepreneurs, like everyone talks about it. Everyone knows that it's kind of a given. It's part of the journey, right? Where you're going to burn out, all of that kind of stuff. But I like, obviously like I had a baby in January, right?
yeah,
And I literally maybe paused my work and my business for a couple of weeks, maybe I didn't fully ever stop,
No.
and so because of that, it created a ton of burnout for me.
Yeah.
And and burnout to me is a failure. Like it's something that it's bumping up against a brick wall over and over and over again. And what wasn't happening before was that I wasn't really learning from it. I was just kind of like burning out. And then I was like, oh, it's a given, this is just part of the journey and all that kind of stuff. And then I would physically get sick. So I would have to actually stop, like doing things because I'd be physically sick. I'd have a cold, I'd have a flu, all of those kind of things, right? I had a cyst that grew
Yeah, I
three
was just
times in
gonna
size.
say.
Like,
Yeah, that's
like your body will fight you like, tooth and nail, literally, to shake you into the reality and to actually learn from it. And so I was just kind of like, I was like, okay, I'm sick, whatever. I'm going to take this time off, whatever. And then I'd get right back on, right? And I wouldn't really evaluate, like, what is it, like, what's not working here, And so this is
hmm
the big shift for me in the last little bit, where I've actually taken the time to evaluate, like, what got me here again? Where is it that I'm like, where is my energy going? Where, like, what's creating results? What's actually lighting me up? All of those kind of things, right? And I'm finally at a place where I've broken through, and some significant things have happened in the last week, even, that have been totally revolutionary for me, because I've learned from the number of times I finally have learned from the number of times that I've like bumped into burnout, and it's been amazing. And I'm just like, I had the keys all along, but yet I wasn't opening the doors, because I was just stuck in this pattern of like, oh, everyone struggles with this. And like, of course I'm going to have burnout. I'm a mom of 4 kids, and I'm on a healing journey, and I'm building a business, and I have a marriage, and like all those things,
Yeah,
right?
the stories you're creating
So,
within your head to excuse and justify what you're doing.
exactly.
It sounds a
Exactly.
lot like drinking. When we drink, we justify ourselves. Oh, we were having fun, or we were celebrating a special day, or it was someone else. I didn't drink that much. I felt okay. I was able to work the next day. We
Yeah.
justify it and we go through
Yeah.
that pattern, and alcoholism just becomes part of a acceptable thing,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
because of the justifications that are
Yeah.
legit,
Yeah.
justifiable.
Exactly.
And your burnout seems like those times that you drunk too much. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not an
Love
addiction,
that.
but it is too. Because when you
Mm-hmm.
burn out, I don't know if you have that. When I burn out, I realize that, oh, I worked hard. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of a validation that I really did my best.
Mm-hmm.
And I take it like a drug and say, oh my gosh, I'm burned out. Like, I can't do it anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
reflecting back means that I did work really hard. I did put my best.
Mm-hmm.
So I work myself up, but then I don't do I wasn't doing anything strategically to not burn out again, because it kind of becomes an addiction. It
Mm-hmm.
became to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like for
I
me,
love that analogy.
for the
Mm-hmm.
10 years, the burnout was it was an addiction that it was a validation addiction
Mm-hmm.
that I
Mm-hmm.
had. I don't know if that resonates with you, but as I'm listening to you, it's like a pattern that you also
Mm-hmm.
had, and maybe you took it and you didn't work on it, because that
Mm-hmm.
pattern that you had with alcoholism sort of, it's very
Mm-hmm.
similar. So your
Mm-hmm.
body and your mindset is kind of used to it.
Yeah, I love that analogy, and this is the first time I've ever heard that. So thank you for sharing that. It definitely resonates. I think the key thing for me was that, like alcohol, for me, like, because I explained in the beginning how for me it never was about having fun. Sure, when I was 15, 16, and I was at house parties with my friends and we were drinking, there were some fun times, like, I'm not going to deny that there were some fun times, but my intention behind the drinking was always that
Okay.
numbing, the blackout, right? Like that, like for me, like, having one or two glasses of wine, what's the point? Like, I'm not going to get drunk over that, So it's like, no, I'm going to have the bottle, because that's going to do
Mm,
the trick. That's going to make it, completely numb out. But at the end of the day, no matter how much I drank, no matter how many times I blacked out, the pain and the suffering was always there. And so it wasn't actually conducive to, it wasn't really helping me. Right. And so with burnout, what I've discovered here is that and this is like new revelation. So these are
yeah.
fresh things that I'm like sharing with you here, because like literally coming out of the tail end of some pretty massive lessons here for me. Where I compare it to if I want to run a marathon or I want to run a race, I'm going to go out and I'm going to run, right? I'm going to jog down my neighborhood. I'm going to to time myself, all that kind of stuff versus being in my basement and going on a treadmill and giving it my all and running and running and running. I'm never going to get ahead. I'm never going to actually I'm running, yes, and I'm burning the calories. I'm doing all this kind of stuff, but where's the destination? I'm actually not like I'm running in place, and so with burnout, that's where I feel like I was really running, running, running in the wrong places where it wasn't really actually moving me forward. Maybe just a bit, a little bit moving me forward, but it wasn't actually like creating massive momentum like it could have been if I would have just grabbed my runners, and went outside and took a jog down my neighborhood, and actually trained in that way, right? And so the big shifts that I've been able to create in the last little bit has been really reevaluating the things that I'm committing to and the purpose and intention behind why I'm committing towards them, right? Like, is this because this is something that I'm excited about, I'm joyful about, I can't wait to leap into, or is this because I'm feeling I need to people please? I don't want to let somebody down. I want to say yes to everything. I have FOMO. I don't want to miss this opportunity.
Or you just want to be busy,
Yeah,
because sometimes we
exactly.
translate being busy as being productive and then
Exactly.
valuing ourselves, and that goes so well with the sense of worth. We want to feel worthy, so we become very busy. We just become busybodies
Yeah.
without an intention and a purpose, and at the end of the day you have nothing to show for.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, it had to take a few times where, really serious things happen, like ending up in the emergency and, things like that. And I know you've also
Yes,
experienced emergency trips lately,
I know.
like it's wild, but I finally like now, and so, these this last even couple of weeks, where I took the time to finally, look at, okay, what's happening here? This is a pattern now, and it's a pattern that's not serving me. It's a pattern that is actually like deterring from my purpose and my mission, and actually taking me away from the things that I'm excited for. Because as you know, when we burn out, if it's not mentally and emotionally, your physical body will
Yep.
burn out, and then you have no choice but to be, taken out and be bedridden for a couple of days. And as a mom, that's almost impossible to do. Like, I was nursing my baby. Like, I can't just like say, oh, Nelson, take the baby. Like, you nurse him. Like, like it's like I'm needed. Like I need to still tend to my 4 children. I need to tend to my husband. Like, yeah, he's self-sufficient and things like that. But there's things around the house, there's things that I cannot get away from, right? And so the amount of times that I had to like kind of suffer through that, finally I was like, okay, obviously there's things that need to shift here. There's changes that need to be made. What can I learn from these failures, from these burnouts, and I learned some really, really valuable lessons. And it was, the key thing, the biggest lesson for me as it pertains to burnout was really evaluating the purpose and intention towards my commitments. And and then I had this, like, I think it was like an email that I received from somebody that I subscribed to, and they had an exercise in there about values. And it was like, are you actually living your life through your values?
Mm.
And there was like some journal prompts, and so I had some time to like go through those. And one of the exercises was like, write down all your values, the things that you live for, the things
Yep.
that you work for, the things that you fight for. Now look at your calendar, and do your values match, your calendar? And that was
Yes.
very eye opening. It was
Yes.
very
Yeah.
eye opening, where I was like, whoa, no, some things are not matching here, and I was just like, okay, I got to get rid of that stuff. I got to get rid of that stuff, right? And here's the cool thing is that, as a recovering people pleaser, where my biggest thing to like, committing to things oftentimes was because like, it was a good friend who gave me an opportunity, and and I love this person and I know it was going to be a good opportunity, but it might not, it just wasn't a right fit for me, but I would still commit.
Yeah.
And it was like my head was like, okay, I don't want to let them down. I don't want them to like
Oh,
not like me, all of those kind of things, right? But here's the cool thing, a couple of these friends have reached out to me in this last couple of weeks with opportunities, amazing opportunities. and I've like sat with it in the instantly I knew if it was a yes or a no,
Yeah.
like I knew in my body. I was like, this isn't lighting me up, this isn't,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so I took the time to like actually share with them. I was like, thank you for this opportunity, this is amazing, I want to say yes, but I like, here's the thing, and then I would just be honest with them, right? And every single one of them has commended me, actually. They're like, good for you for saying no. Like,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. Like, like, I'm so proud of you. Like, things like that. And I was like, what? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you don't hate me, you're not disappointed in me, things like that, right? And it's been amazing. And then I've still been able to serve them and support them, or giving them referrals. It's like, okay, but I do know somebody who I know would be interested in this, can I refer them to you? They'd be like, yes, yes, absolutely, that kind of a thing, right? Still adding value, but then there's so much sense of peace within me where it's like, okay, and then it gives room for me, because with those two opportunities, big opportunity, actually three of them, three really, really huge kind of life altering opportunities that I was offered that just weren't in alignment with where I'm at right now and that I declined. Now, even bigger opportunities have opened up for me that I can say yes to, that I'm
Yeah.
actually like excited about. And then, and so it's amazing how that works,
Yeah.
when we actually start learning, and
Yeah.
assessing,
Yeah.
because the Abby 3 weeks ago would not be telling this story right now. I would be saying yes to those opportunities. It would be in my calendar and I would be resentful. I'd be
Yes.
resentful.
Yeah.
I'd be hesitant. I'd be dreading it, all of those things, right? And it's just like, and I would put, and that was the pattern. That was the pattern that I kept falling into,
The
and so now
burnout.
I'm like, yes. So now I'm like, okay, I've learned,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they say when you betray your values, you betray yourself, you betray that discipline that you made to advance by saying yes, you're closing those doors that could have been opened later on if you stuck
exactly.
to yourself and your beliefs. So
Exactly.
that's amazing. I'm so happy for you that you were able
Yeah.
to do that.
Thank you. I
And look
mean,
forward to
hard
that Digo.
lessons.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And congratulations if that allowed you to get that bigger door to be open for you. I That's the proof in the pudding that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think back again to the story that I talked about in the beginning, had I not had that experience, exactly like what you mentioned, like eventually I would have failed. I just don't know. It was a matter of time, right? Because when we're pursuing something that we've never done before, something that is new, especially when it comes to like a lifestyle change. Like this was a significant lifestyle change for me.
Okay.
There's going to be failures, right? Because like just like riding a bike, like I cannot think that I'm going to learn to ride a bike and not fall at least one time.
Yeah.
At least one time. It's part of it. It's
It's a
part of the
part of the
journey.
process. It's part of the process.
Exactly. And so the minute that we embrace that we are going to have failures, and I remember like, cause obviously like I am a part of incredible masterminds. I've been around incredible thought leaders. I've been trained by like amazing, huge, kind of influencers, thought leaders in the world who are doing big things, right? And it's easy to see a lot of these people who we deem as successful,
Hmm.
right, as like incredible. It's
We
really
put them in a
easy.
pedestal.
Exactly. They're like, oh, it's easy for them to say that, look where they're at and like, look how amazing they are and all this stuff. But we don't know that. And I remember one of them specifically saying in a talk, I'm only here because I failed much more times than any of you have, you
Yeah.
know, and that was a big perspective for me because it was like,
Hmm.
whoa, and then they went on to share their failures, very
Yeah.
vulnerably, what it was like to start out and what it was like to put themselves out there and all of that kind of stuff. And it was so inspiring for me where it just like, really validated and normalized for me that, okay, this is a part of the process. This is a part of the journey. There's nothing to be afraid of. As long as I embrace it and kind of prepare myself as much as I can in terms of like when I do end up in failure, what can I learn from it? Because even as I'm entering into like coaching and I'm helping like clients overcome things. I'm only able to do that because I have failed tremendous amount of times, and
Hmm.
I can actually speak to their pain and give name to what they've experienced in a time when maybe they were me 5 years ago,
Yeah.
in a time where they couldn't see on the other side. Maybe they were me 10 years ago where, they were starting into this healing and recovery journey. They knew it was going to be hard. They knew it was going to be it was going to take everything, but they just didn't even know how, like where to start, all of that kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
I would not be able to do that confidently if I hadn't gone through my own hurdles, my own challenges. And,
Yeah.
it gets to the place where now I actually very much look forward to the challenges. In my morning
Hmm.
meditation and my morning prayer, I always say, like, thank you for the joys and the challenges of my life,
Yeah.
because that is what is making me, that's what is creating the person that I'm becoming, is that, I'm able to actually take these things and, like, and let's not get it wrong. There's been times when some failures happen that are very painful. They're very painful. And so I'm not going to minimize that it's hard to fail, because it is, right? But the key thing is that I don't get stuck in it for like a long period of time, and I don't get victimized by it, and I don't stay there, right?
Hmm.
I will sit with it, maybe 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, sulk about it, be whiny, cry, whatever it is that I need to do. And then I was like, okay, so now what? And what can I do with this mess, right? So this
Yeah.
mess in front of me, how can I pick it up and turn something beautiful out of it, right?
Hmm.
And again, this has been years of, like,
Practice.
just practice,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
and having people pour into me that speak that kind of thing, those things to me, that
Yeah.
they're on the other side, right? And
Yeah.
they can actually normalize that this is the experience, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
this brings me back to the point number two that you said. When you are getting over your addiction, you have to surround yourself with people that understand your journey, and to stay away from the things that can lure you back into that old
Mhm.
habit. And I want to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Now, with your new life, with you not wanting to burn out, you cleaning your circle to clean that environment where you can prosper and bloom.
Mhm.
What are the things that you're doing now to
Yeah.
be able to do that, so you're not burning out anymore, so you are, feeding yourself with a positive narrative that helps you move forward,
Yeah.
for you not to go back and be sober for 10 years? Like, how
Mm.
did you do that? What was your journey into that?
Yeah, this is a deep question because many reasons.
Yeah.
Because, as you know, with human relationships, it's probably one of the most painful things that we experience in
Exactly.
this life, right?
Yeah.
When we are talking about relationships, whether it's a boyfriend, an ex-boyfriend, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, a best friend, we are going to experience grief in this lifetime,
Hmm.
whether we physically lose them or we actually um, cut the relationship, right? And so we have to grieve the loss of the relationship.
Hmm.
I am no stranger to that topic, and it is something that I am still working through, and it is extremely, incredibly painful because what I've realized in my realizations, especially recently with all the burnout and all that kind of stuff, and the self awareness and the evaluation, is that when I would be meeting up, because, like, I have a pretty large network. I have a lot of people that I know, a lot of friends from, like, my past life, in my
Hmm.
former life and stuff like that. Lots really great community, right? But there are a lot of people that I would give to, and there was no reciprocity, where I would give and give, and yet I would never get anything in return, not even an encouragement, not even support, all of that kind of stuff, right?
How?
And a lot of these people were people that were very near and dear to me. Like, I loved them, right? And unfortunately and fortunately, they were family members, where it's like people that I love that are blood related, and that I thought would be the biggest supporters of my journey, of everything. And unfortunately, they weren't, and that was a really
Hmm.
hard truth to swallow. But a key thing that I discovered was that when I would be in the presence of some of these people, I started to really notice who I was when I was with them, and how I felt when I would leave a situation with being with them, whether it was a gathering, whether it was a coffee, whether it was a dinner. I would really start to evaluate. And, like, our intuition is so powerful. It is something that I speak on all the time, to really learn to nurture and trust your intuition. It is a
Yeah.
superpower,
Yeah.
right? And your intuition will tell you when you're out of alignment. It will tell you when the situation, the person, the place is not serving you, right?
Hmm.
But then it's up to us to actually make the decision and listen to that, kind of
Yes.
flag or that ding ding,
Yeah.
and actually do something about it, right? And so I started to evaluate some of these relationships and how I felt, when I would leave them. And I thought, a lot of, some of these relationships were, um, I noticed that I had to wear a mask when I was with them.
Mhm.
Like I had to, it wasn't safe to really be myself around them. I wasn't ever like, I didn't feel safe to share with them like what I'm working on, what I'm excited about, my dreams, my passions, my aspirations. And to be honest, they didn't care to even ask. Like
Yeah.
they were very much attached to the unhealed version of myself,
Yeah.
right? And that was a very hard truth to swallow because it was like, this new, shiny, more vibrant, more in alignment, more authentic person that I've become. They don't like that person anymore. Like
Mhm.
it scares them. It scares them. They're like, they're, or whatever it is that, it's a mirror for them where it's like, whoa, like, yeah, like she's no longer kind of part of us. She's no longer
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
bucket, the bucket, the
Yeah.
crabs in the bucket situation. I always like talking about it where, you have like, if you have an experiment of two crabs in a bucket, they will always stay in the bucket because as soon as one starts trying to climb out, the other will
They
pull
will pull
pull it
them
out,
down. Yeah.
right? And so when you escape that bucket and you try looking, they will always try to pull you back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so so I had to like really be real with myself, and in that list of values that I told you that I did in the
Yeah.
exercise, a lot of there was people in there that were of value for me, right? And that I value and I cherish, and I would do anything for them and all that kind of stuff. But then I had to ask myself, but would they do for me?
Yeah.
Even a quarter of what I would do for them, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, in any relationship, you have to have give and take. It doesn't work one way,
Yeah.
right? Like there has to be value exchanged on both
Of
ends,
course. Yeah.
right? Or else it's one-sided, and then it's not actually a relationship. Like it's
Yeah.
actually more of a like a servant server kind of like
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
dynamic, right? And so I had to really think about that, and I had to assess and evaluate like, how do I feel when I come out of these meetups or these rooms or whatever it is, and there was some harsh truths and realities in there that I was like, I don't like who I am when I'm with these people. They don't support me. They don't encourage me. They don't really care to know me on a deeper level. They just want to talk about the past. They want to talk about the good old days. They want to like complain about other people. They want to gossip. They want to like all these things that are not in line with my values anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
They're not moving forward. They want to stay
Exactly.
in the past and they want to stay comfortable. So
Exactly.
when they see you moving forward,
Hmm.
when they see you shine, it dims their light. Like, did you feel
Exactly.
like that? Did you feel like you
Oh
had to
yeah.
kind of dim your light so
Oh
you
yeah.
don't outshine them, that you don't feel guilty for outshining them? Yeah.
Exactly. And those are the same words that I told, Nelson, my husband. I was like, I'm like, I have to dim my light so dim that I'm barely even on.
Yes,
Like,
and then you can't see yourself there anymore.
no,
Yeah,
no,
because you're shutting yourself down for them to make them comfortable. You can't
exactly.
find yourself, and we easily stay in those relationships.
Exactly, because of the justification, right? Like, oh, they're blood family. Oh, I've known them for 20 years. Oh, they were there for me this one time. Oh, like there's so many excuses that we can make and justifications that we can make so that we feel better about ourselves. We minimize the reality,
Yeah,
and as a trauma survivor, I've learned and understand now that it's actually a trauma response,
yeah,
where, growing up in an abusive home, when I had to lie about my home situation in like around everyone, right? At school, like all that kind of stuff, you get very used to minimizing people's actions,
hmm,
where it's like, oh, well, they had a hard this or, all these kind of things. And, it sometimes has to take some really, really hard, painful situations to happen for you to finally wake up, just like my relapse,
yeah,
just like my burnout. This has actually happened with recently with some relationships in my life where I've had to really, there were some really cruel things that kind of happened that I minimized instantly. And fortunately, I had somebody with me that was kind of an outsider that wasn't part of the dynamic, and they saw it so clearly. And they were like, wait a minute, that's not normal. Is this normal behavior for them? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's not cool. Like that's like, I'm just, and they're shocked. And then I found myself, minimizing. It's like, oh well, this and this and this.
yeah,
And then I heard this resounding um voice from like my inner child when that happened. And she said, we deserve better than this.
yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Like
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
never heard her speak that boldly, and I said, you're right, we do deserve better than this,
yeah,
and so then enter in the process of grieving, those
yeah.
relationships. And with grief, and I talk a lot about this, like, with like my content and things like that, where, sometimes the reason why grief is so painful is because the love was so deep in those relationships, right? The deeper you love somebody, the deeper the grief will be. And it's hard, especially when there's the complexities of it being a person that is still walking this earth, a person that hasn't passed away. And especially when it comes to family dynamics, right? Where that you have to see them, a few times a year or whatever is the case. You still have to interact with them and things like that. It's hard. It's a hard truth and a hard reality. But in order for us to truly yeah, like truly live in alignment and truly live a joyful life and a peaceful life, and truly flourish in life. Yeah, we have to kind of come to terms, with the weight of these relationships, and then come to terms with the decision of, is it worth me having to put on this mask, having to dim my light, having to become my old version of myself that I fought so hard to unbecome,
Hmm.
just because just so that I can be accepted, semi accepted in their circle,
Yeah,
and the answer is no.
yeah.
It's not worth it. The
And
price is too high.
especially when you're a mom and you have your children that might be exposed to the same thing, and that generational issues, that generational trauma can be repeated to them, because you don't want to
Exactly.
normalize this to the point that your kids grow up thinking this is normal,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
that repeat in their generation again, that cycle to be
Exactly.
repeated.
It's so important, it's so important. And you're right, they're watching. No
They're
matter how
watching.
much, they're always watching, right? And if I'm trying to tell my children that, we should be respectful towards other people, we should, be kind, compassionate, generous, all these things, but yet I'm living in a way where they see me dimming my light, they see me people pleasing, they see me, being a totally different person, like they're not going to take my words, they're going to take my actions,
Yeah,
you
because
know?
you're not being kind to yourself. You're not being
Hmm.
respectful to yourself. Those values that you want to project to others, you're not giving it to yourself.
Exactly,
And kids
exactly.
see
So
that.
it's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Well, that, and as you said earlier, it's a practice. I don't think
Hmm.
that you can say, "Oh, I this is things of the past. I'm perfect now." Like it's a continuous things, and it
Yes.
shows up in so many different facets in your life. First with your addiction, then your burnout cycle, then your family. Cleaning our environment for us to bloom is a continuous hard job that we do
Yeah,
every day, and we have to. It's
we do.
I compare it to like having plants. We need to continuously not just water it, but repot it, cut the roots, right? We need to prune
Exactly.
it, and
Hmm.
all of that. I remember there was a plant that I loved it so much, and somebody just said, Christina, it's not gonna grow more than that. You gotta prune it. And I said, I
Hmm.
just got these pink leaves. I don't want to prune it. And they said, well, you got to. And those are the hard things.
Mm,
And I once I prune it, it bloomed two, three times
mm,
more.
mm,
And I noticed that with my relationships too. You know my story. I had to cut
hmm,
down an entire community. I had to
hmm,
distance myself from my own family. I lost
hmm.
my mom through that process, and
Yeah,
it is a hard thing, but at the end of the day, I always say it's going to help me grow more, but also clean
hmm,
the path for my kids to grow.
hmm, hmm.
And
Absolutely. I love that analogy, the garden, because I was just thinking about our garden. We have a beautiful garden right now that's like producing so much, like, tomatoes and all this like amazing stuff. And you're right, we like, as beautiful as it is and as much as we want to, like, keep it all intact, we do have to go in there and clean it out, we do have to prune it, we do have to get rid of the weeds, we have to, all of that kind of stuff,
yeah,
right? And so it takes loving care. And it's not a situation where we plant it once, we walk away, and then it's all blooming
yeah,
and flourishing, and then we
yeah,
just, it's no, life is, especially when you're creating, the life of your dreams, and you're going against the grain, and you're doing what other people are not willing to do.
yeah,
You're going to have to do things that
yeah,
are uncomfortable, that are painful.
yeah,
But one of the key things, a few key things, in this journey, if I could offer any sort of guidance and support to other people who can resonate with what we've been sharing, is, truly surround yourself with people who get it,
Yeah.
who will be real with you, who will value you, who will support you, and you will gladly do the same for them. That's so key. You cannot do this alone. If you do it alone, you're going to be in a really dark place really quickly.
Yeah.
Like isolation and loneliness is one of the biggest killers, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's what leads to suicides. It's what leads to addiction. It's what leads to shame, cycle, burnout, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so it's just really important to like surround yourself, with amazing people, people that are in line with your values and things like that. And then just having that deep connection with yourself, that deep connection with yourself where you know better, and when you know better, you have the responsibility to do better. Right. And then, of course, having like professional support. If I'm a firm believer that when I
Therapy.
have I have my amazing friends like that I like, we have real deep talks and things like that. But I also have my professional,
Yeah.
supporters that I see them and they're able to navigate things from a emotionally detached, like perspective. And they're like, I mean, that's what they're trained to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so, those are some things that I would really, really encourage people, and just, just that connection with self, connection with the right people, that your people, your community. And then, for those, who want like a deeper kind of spiritual relationship, it's for me, that's one and first and foremost, right? Is having that like relationship, knowing that, there's something bigger than me that's out there. The universe is expansive, it's beautiful, and it really is conspiring and really co-creating with you if you connect with it, right? And you're awake, and you're listening for the nudges that it gives you, like, here's an opportunity for you, here's maybe to stay back, or like those kind of things, right? And so yeah, those would be the three key things that I would really encourage others that are resonating.
I love that. I love the
Hmm.
bullet points.
Yeah.
Do you want to go get Eliseo?
Yeah, he's crying right now, but it's okay. He'll be okay. He'll just play in there for a bit.
Okay. I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure. I would
yeah,
I used to get anxious, but you're so good.
yeah,
I don't know what's happening with my light. It's flickering. Is it flickering
yeah.
there too?
No, I see yours, and it keeps like
Yeah.
blurring in and out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those three things, that's those are really good.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted to touch on one thing. Remember when I said you need to prune, you need to like repot,
Hmm.
cut the roots and prune. Those are hard things to do, especially with our family members. And I don't know, you didn't share about your mom and your dad, and
Hmm.
I don't, you're not comfortable with sharing that.
Hmm.
But when it comes to friendship, it always happens too. Because you have
Yeah.
friends in the past that, and this is something I'm meditating lately.
Hmm.
So remember your friends in the past. Do you feel like cutting that relationship or keeping a distance from them? Do you worry that they might feel like you're judging them? Because I read
Hmm.
a post that says, I'm in my era of fully expressing myself without worrying that I might trigger others.
Hmm.
And that got me thinking into, what am I doing that could be triggering others to the point
Hmm.
that they feel like I'm undervaluing them. I am
Hmm.
undermining them. Do you have times where you feel that your friends could be thinking that of you, that you're judging them?
I think for sure I've experienced it in the past.
Hmm.
And here's the thing. I know that I'm not for everyone. I know that who I am triggers people, but they're not my people. And that's the key distinction that I have to be okay with, is understanding that when you put yourself out there and you're, an influencer or a coach or a leader of some sort, or a mentor, either you are going to and especially when you stand for something, when you have like a really clear point of view, and you have really clear values, and you stand for something, you have to be okay with knowing that not everyone is going to like you, not everyone is going to agree with your path, and that you are going to get judged, and that is it's a harsh truth and a harsh reality. When it comes to friends, I'm of the belief and of the mindset that if somebody has a problem or an issue with me, that we are friends enough that we're able to have a growing conversation,
Hmm.
and talk about it. Because I'm not responsible for how people perceive me in their mind, and I can't try to convince somebody not to feel something that they feel. Everybody is entitled to their opinions, everybody's entitled to their perspective. And I think when we run into trouble is when we start trying to force other people to see things our way. And they're just not going to see it your way, right? They're not willing, right? And then that's when people will kind of turn to gossiping, talking behind your back, things like that. And for people that, kind of turn to that, for me, I honestly don't have time for that. Like, I just, if somebody is going to call themselves a friend of mine, but then when I'm not there in their presence, they're like actually bashing me or talking things behind my back and then yet smiling at me in my face, that's not really a friend to me. Because
Yeah.
I
Mm.
certainly don't do that with my own friends.
Yeah.
Like if I'm in a room and somebody's like, talking about one of my friends, like I will amp them up. I will be like, this person is amazing, blah, blah, blah. Like gone are the days, like don't get me wrong, there was a time and place, when there was gossip and all that kind of stuff with old association and things like that, high school, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. It goes
But
back to high school, see?
totally, totally, but and again, there are people in my life who don't connect with the new version of me.
Mm,
They're very much connected to the unhealed version of me and who I was back then. And for better or worse, there's people that they haven't seen me in 10 plus years. And when they see me, the instant memory that comes into their mind is who I was 10 years ago, right?
yeah.
And so I could be, speaking to them about something incredible, and they're going to be looking at me through this lens of who they knew me as, 10 years ago, because they haven't gotten to know who I am now, and they don't care to know who I am now, right? And so I understand that. And then it's easier said than done for sure, because we have this innate human need to be accepted, to
Of
belong,
course.
right?
Yeah.
We want to be accepted, we want to belong, we want to fit in, but at what cost, is the question that I ask myself, is like, at what cost am I going to belong to this group or this friend circle or this family, whatever is the case. And I have to really get real with myself, is the like I said, with recently, with these situations that I've kind of been navigating through, where I've had to really get real with myself. And it's like, okay, the price I'm paying for playing small, for dimming my light, for like, having this mask on when I'm around these like certain groups of people, is way too heavy, for in exchange from what I'm actually getting, and like, on the other end, right?
Yeah.
And so I believe that people will come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's always one of those three things. They
Yeah.
will come into your life. I have people in my life that were in the season of my drinking, of my party girl days, of all that kind of stuff, right? There are people that came into my life who taught me deep lessons, in love, in vulnerability, in betrayal, that I know that they were in my life for a reason, and there's people in my life who are in my life for a lifetime. My partner, my soulmate, he's in my life for a lifetime. And so it's, having peace and comfort, knowing that as we grow and evolve, not everyone is going to come with us, and not everyone is going to agree, and not everyone is going to celebrate us. And hold on, I'm just going to turn on the volume. He's not crying, he's just fussing.
Okay.
If he was crying, he'd be like screaming. Um, yeah, I was like, what was I saying? The friends season of come with us. Oh, I had a really good flow going there, and now I like,
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
okay, I'm just like thinking. Um, yeah, so as I was saying, like, it's really coming to terms and understanding that, not as we grow and evolve and change, it's just like a pair of shoes or a pair of pants that you love. Like your body changes through time, your feet. I didn't know that
Mm.
after pregnancy your feet are gonna grow. you know? And I have this box full of stilettos in my basement of like all these like collection of shoes that I had, and they no longer fit me,
Oh my God.
and so I have to get rid of them. As much as I love them and I want to be able to wear them, I can't anymore. I'm growing out of them, right?
You
And so
love.
similarly, there's people that I love them. I will always have love for them, but they're just, we've kind of grown apart or growing out of those relationships,
Yeah.
right? And just having peace around that. There's no ill feelings. I don't have any, to be honest. I'm at a place in my life where I truly do not have any ill feelings towards anyone, you know. I
Yeah.
have, what I do have instead is deep compassion, because I know that we
Yes.
are all here on this earth living a human experience, doing the best that we can, as we see it, as we see it. And I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm not here to, if I don't like someone, I'm just going to stay away from them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to try to, like, and vice versa. And understanding that, again, I'm not for everyone. Everyone's not for me. But again, it's easier said than done, right? Because we want to be celebrated and accepted and just loved and all that kind of stuff, right? And I was telling a friend of mine the other day, because we were talking about this very thing. Um, Again, when you stand up for something, when you're doing big things in the world, there's going to be haters, there's going to be trolls, there's going to be people that are going to try to bring you down. They're going to be repelled by your light, right? And they'll say nasty things to you, especially on the internet, in social media and stuff like that, where the comments, sometimes the comment section's like the wild, wild west, where
Hmm.
anyone can say anything at any time. And I was having this conversation with my friend the other day, and I just was like, whether or not you're spiritual or not, or you believe or not, the fact is that, Jesus Christ was on this earth at one point in time, and he was a perfect human being, and he was crucified. And what did he do on this earth? He gave, he healed, he loved, he was a perfect human being, and still he was hated. So if even he, is can't leave this earth unscathed, by not pleasing everyone, who am I to think that I'm gonna have, like,
All the
like the
love.
whole all the love from everyone? It's impossible. But what matters is that I have, the love and acceptance from the right people who I
Yeah.
admire, who I respect, who respect me. That's, a beautiful reciprocal kind of relationship.
Yeah.
That's really what matters, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And it comes full circle into what we talked earlier about your relationship with alcoholism. You wanted to cope so you can stop suffering. You wanted to mask so you don't have to. You wanted to mask and numb so you don't have the dark feelings you were having. But now, because you built that relationship with you that is
Hmm.
deeper, and you're choosing yourself, you're choosing your values, you're choosing to love yourself above everything else,
Hmm.
you're not needing to numb anymore. You
Hmm.
are showing that everything gets easier once you choose you and you're present with yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And, but going back, and again, because I've been reflecting a lot about, my 10-year anniversary coming up here, it's very deep for me. And I was just thinking about how, um, like, I asked myself, like, what was so hard for me to, like,
Numb it.
to face, like
Yeah.
why was so scary for me to face these wounds, and for a number of reasons. Number one, because I never had role models in my life that I could actually look to, that could speak to my pain from the other side. So I didn't really see examples of people who overcame the things that I overcame. So, without seeing, I once again thought I was the only one, that I had only, that no one else had suffered like I had, all those kind of things. I made it believe that, I was alone in this world. No one had experienced what I had experienced, all of that kind of stuff, which, obviously when I entered into recovery and I started hearing other people around me speaking their
Yeah.
stories, it was like this huge sigh of relief where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one, right? We do heal in community. I'm a firm believer in that. And number two, I honestly felt like if I went back there and I faced the deepest, darkest things that I had experienced, I honestly felt I was going to die. I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to die. And then, when I was able to be guided through, a lot of these painful experiences, with a lot of support, a lot of help, I did not do this on my own. It was hard. It's like, the way I described it is like going through, like, when you're driving on the highway and there's like a crazy storm, like there's lightning and the water is just like, like, I don't know if you've ever driven on the highway when there's like a crazy storm like that,
Mm-hmm.
where you can barely even see and your
Mm-hmm.
windshield wipers can't, it's, and like you get actually scared. Like, I get scared. You sometimes have to pull over,
Mm-hmm.
until it kind of settles. And then, and then you make it through and then you get home and you're safe, right? And this relief is like, oh, that was scary. Or a snowstorm,
Yeah.
even scarier when it's like slippery, going through and facing, the deep dark trauma and all of that kind of stuff felt like a storm for me, where it was so scary in the moment. Sometimes I had to pull over and take breaks, but then once I made it on the other side, I was like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Like, yeah, that was scary and it was, like hard, but it wasn't that bad. It didn't kill me, right? And the more times I did that, the more confidence grew in me, and the more I was able to, the more I was more resourced and more empowered to be able to like repeat this, right? Where now it's like, yeah, there's still storms that I'm navigating through. There's times I have to take a break. There's times that but on the other
Hmm.
side, I've done it enough times now that when, like I said, I actually get excited for some of these things to come up sometimes because I'm like, oh, what am I going to learn here? Like
Yes.
what lesson am I going to learn and who am I going to become through this and how am I going to help someone else eventually work through this very same thing? And I look at it as a training grounds. Life really is a training grounds, right? Where you have to show up, suit up, and do the best that you can.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
so true.
yeah,
My biggest takeaway from this conversation is that we really need to get to know each other, not like each other as us as a person, and then us as someone else, and make that fusion and really be able to see ourselves for who we are.
yeah.
Because once we don't know, and once we can see, or once we don't like what we're seeing in us, we tend to mask. I think all
Mm,
the issues are coming from that. Everything else
yeah.
is just to mask and not to
Hmm.
open our eyes and accept ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that your journey into this recovery is finding yourself.
Hmm.
Yourself, you found
Hmm.
love for yourself, you
Hmm.
found presence for yourself, and
Hmm.
value to the point that you were able to prune away things,
Hmm.
cut things that were not serving you because you put yourself first.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it took you 10 years, and now that you love yourself so much, you can see yourself and you love what you're seeing.
Hmm.
I don't think there will be anything that you want to numb anymore, anything that
No.
you mask anymore. You're ready
Hmm.
to face that.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, the self-love is definitely a work in
Yeah.
progress.
Yes.
It is possible, but I've a worlds away, from where started, right? But it's something that you cultivate more and more. And how you
Yeah.
do that is by first and foremost having respect for yourself.
Yes.
And when you
Yeah.
have respect for yourself, you will respect that, sometimes you have to give up things that are painful,
Yeah.
right? Because you love yourself and you respect yourself and you respect the other person too,
Yeah.
to show up as a half version of yourself or a
Yeah.
quarter version of yourself in front of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
You're not doing them a service and you're not doing yourself a service,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And then compassion, right? To know
Hmm.
that you can fail, and you have to fail. That you
Yep,
have to trust the journey to to go through the failures and errors and mistakes to be able to overcome them and then be successful. Oh,
absolutely.
I love your story. I
Thank
thought
you.
this deserves a bigger share than
Hmm.
many that are going through this journey of motherhood, failing, and some sort of addiction. We all have, and
Hmm.
then we reach a point in our lives that we are cutting things from our circle to keep it tight and small
Yeah,
and really juicy. And we are
rich.
going through,
Hmm.
yeah, we're going through that. And I wanted to share this with other people because
Hmm.
I learned so much from you.
Oh, thank you. This was a beautiful conversation. I know we can talk for hours, but
I
yeah,
know.
thank you for holding space for your questions and yeah, it was a really beautiful conversation. I'm really happy that it will help someone along the way in their path not to feel alone and to have hope.
Yes. Yeah. And is there anything that you're working on right now that you want to
Yeah.
share? Yes.
Absolutely. So I'm launching and you're actually getting exclusive. So depending on when this gets aired, you're getting exclusive details that no one else knows right now except for my really like inner circle that's helping me work through this. So I am launching my one-to-one signature coaching program at the end of September, early October. It's called the Healing Mama Path. And it is tailor made for moms who are in the thick of motherhood, who are struggling with the burnout, overwhelm, unfulfillment, just feel lost in motherhood. And I'm so excited that I've curated an incredible program to help create boundaries, for yourself, self-care practices, really find fulfillment in yourself and know that you can do it all. It's just about prioritizing the things that are in line with you and all of that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to be doing a workshop next month, that's going to be free to attend. All of that will be a part of my email subscribers list, which I'll give you the link for that. And then
Yes.
also on my social medias is at uh.bee at Avi. That's the main place that I'm kind of play at. And that I'll be releasing a lot of details around that as well. And I'm also a community advisory board member for the Healing and CPTSD Foundation
Yes, I'm
that
super
is
excited
launching.
about that.
Yes, it's launching September 2nd next week. It's going to be incredible. It is a huge, huge platform that is going to help survivors outside of social media. So it's going to be a tight knit community with a ton of resources. And I am honored to be hosting the Healing and CPTSD Parenting Support Circle. It's going to be a
Mm,
free monthly circle where parents who are navigating CPTSD can come together and we can just feel supported, heard, seen, understood, all of that kind of stuff. And so those are the big things that I'm really working on right now, and a few other side things that you'll
beautiful.
know of when, yeah.
I'm gonna put all your links in the
Yes,
description and then in the caption. And I wanted to do this recording because I got super excited about the complex PTSD workshop
yeah,
that you're gonna do, and I wanted many others to join. Thank you,
yes,
Abby, for this
absolutely.
conversation.
Yes, thank you so much, Christina.
Bye.
Bye.